Occasionally, occasionally kids are suspended from school for particularly bad behavior. Given that we have kids from families whose homes might not be nurturing, do you know of any alternatives to suspension?
Yeah, I think if we can avoid suspension, that's the best thing we can possibly do. A lot of times, if you didn't give a specific example of what happened, but if something happens in the classroom, the teacher has to have the ability to speak with the student and hear their perspective and maybe mediate with an administrator in the office. Getting to the suspension is a process. Obviously, in our community, there's a lot of homes that their safety net is actually in the school. This is the one place they can be safe for 6 to 8 hours a day. And if we can keep the students in the school and work with them and keep them in the classroom, I think that's the best method to...
As a recent graduate in the high school, my graduating class, I do remember that a lot of my graduating friends, we would, not personally me, but then they would get suspended over the littlest things. If you got like 2 warnings over dress code, for example, you automatically get a suspension. And it just, to me, it didn't make sense because the whole goal of going to school is so you can be in school, not just come to school and get suspended over something so simple as dress code. I feel like it should just, they should see it as a different way. Like Brian was saying, like go to administration, speak, you know, maybe get some warnings, but just to just jump into a conclusion and just suspend a student and not give them the opportunity to be in the classroom, it's not fair. Before I used to get in-school suspension, I would say even if you want to suspend somebody, even just in-school suspension, maybe just for a day, maybe let the student think about what their actions were depending on what the situation was, but to suspend them from school completely.
Thank you, Ms. Thomas.
So I'm going to start saying, anybody got time for that? And I'm saying that there are parents that have to go to work. There are grandparents that have things to do. The kids are almost benefiting from getting suspended because they're going home to their TVs and their tablets and their video games, and they're thoroughly enjoying their day off. So if we can do anything to avoid that circumstance, I'm definitely about it. So keeping them in school suspensions, I think, is really important. And maybe an out-of-school suspension that maybe doesn't happen at the school, but they are still required to report to school, and then school transfers them to do like community service or any kind of community service. I was going to list them, but we know community services. So yeah, keeping them in school as much as possible, I think, is the ultimate goal for that. Out-of-school suspension does really nothing to benefit the student nor the partying classes.
Well, I agree with all of my colleagues here while they were admiring the size of the problem. All those negative effects of suspension do affect our students and keep them from doing their work. But we actually do know of an alternative. We have a pilot program for restorative justice that the previous board fought very hard to get implemented, and it hasn't been widely and fully implemented enough. It's very expensive to train people for that. It takes a long time to become good at it. It's a soft skill that isn't just checking the boxes or going through the PowerPoint presentation and then you get it. But what I want to do is ask the administration to include board members to sit in and observe the implementation of the restorative sessions and get a feel for where they're happening, where they're not happening, and how competent people are when they're trained. So that is a real alternative.
I want to go back to the restorative practices as Mr. Hart was talking about. That was a ball dropped about 4 or 5 years ago. That we were promised would be fully implemented. In order for a teacher to be trained in restorative practices, there are 4 or 5 modules: conferencing, meetings, and had that been implemented, we would definitely see a drop in our suspension because everybody from the custodian to the principal, everybody in the building would participate in this training. And that didn't happen. We were told it was going to, and once we have a climate specialist in-house now, and it's my hope that will happen over the next couple of years.
I think when you look at suspensions, the thing that's lacking is the cultural competency. New London has a history of disproportionate suspensions of students of color to their white counterpart for the same offense. So I think that we need to look at cultural competency when training our administrators and training our staff. When we talk about the ball dropping for restorative practices, that's on us, right? Because we are supposed to hold people accountable to do their jobs. So if their jobs aren't being done, we have to take responsibility for that.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mosley.